Here we go. Okay, we're live. Welcome to Sorting Myself Out. My name is Ryan Holsapple. I'm here with the wonderful Mercury Black. How you doing, buddy?
Depressed, half awake, but okay.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I got a comment, I think it was last night. It was a question about the subpersonality video that I gave a presentation on in the fall, and it was a very good question in the comments underneath that video. The video is called The Psychology of Subpersonalities, a Self-Soul Spirit Approach. The link is in the description. And Zach, I will only say his first name here, but Zach said, hey, I had a question. And I thought now would be a good time to try to answer his question. That sound good, Merc?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, so Zach says, hey, I had a question. Not sure if this will be looked at. I'm going to pull this up here. Excuse me. Not sure if this will be looked at. Well, it's definitely looked at. So here we go. How do I know if a trait that I have is a personality or just a tendency that appears because of the way that I'm doing something? Doing it poorly, perhaps, question mark. This is my example. I have this lazy side that avoids hard things. Those hard things being something that is stressing me out or a complex, difficult situation that I don't know how to handle. And therefore, my solution to these is pretending the hard things don't exist and instead doing something wasteful with my time. And usually not actually fun, but literally just a poor use of time. One could call it the procrastinator. Is this a personality? Question mark. Or me just integrating myself poorly? I desperately don't want the procrastinator to be a subpersonality because that would mean that A, I have to integrate him. I thought this part was funny. And none of my personalities like anything he's doing. None of my other personalities like anything he's doing. Exclamation mark. It's just so funny. It goes against my agendas entirely. And B, I just love that so much that I have to contend with what the procrastinator wants every now and then. Can you give me some guidance on this? Great question, Zach. So we're going to try to take a stab at this here. I started writing a response. By the way, thanks earlier. Underneath that, you wrote a very nice compliment to the channel and the things that we're doing here. We really appreciate it. We're gonna try to take a stab at this. So first of all, is how do you know if this trait that you have, this behavior you have, is a personality or just a tendency? Well, the first thing that I would say to that is every behavior that we manifest is based in a personality. It's based in a mode of potentiality and a mode of predispositional reality. So you can't act a certain way unless you have the operational equipment to carry that out in your life. Therefore, if you find yourself behaving a certain way, it's because there's something about you that has the capacity to behave that way. Now, that doesn't mean that the behavioral circuit, let's call it the set of neural circuitry that is responsible for mapping that behavior onto your life, that doesn't necessarily have to be a subpersonality. That is a behavior that the personality is manifesting. So I like to use the example of a subpersonality like the challenger, who for me can be very angry, but can also be very assertive. See, what I want you to see is there's a wide spectrum of potential manifestations for a personality. They don't have to be one behavior. Things are multifaceted and multidimensional. They have the capacity to show up in different ways. I have a part of me that reminds me of your procrastinator. I call him Lazy Bear. Now, Lazy Bear can manifest as a procrastinator, but he can also go on a very relaxing walk. He can also do a meditation to relax his body, a body scan. He can also enjoy a nice day off with my partner Victoria, who I love. So there's a lot of different ways that we manifest our dispositional traits. Those dispositional traits are the baseline. You could call them potentialities for being. When we're born, we have a baseline, we have potentialities. You could think of it as a seed. And that seed is a unique potential to become a tree. But in that seed, it's only going to be the tree that it's going to be. It can't be the tree across the street. It can't be the tree right next to it. It can only be what it has the potential to be. And if it is in the right environment, it's going to bring out different capacities. So if it gets enough sunlight, a certain capacity will be fostered, and within that growth, it'll come into a potentiality of being that would otherwise not be possible. On the other hand, if it gets less sunlight and more wind, it'll bring out different potentialities. But you have to see that all that it's bringing out is something that's already there within it to be brought out. So let's say that you're manifesting a procrastination behavior. Now, do you want to call it a procrastinator? Well, that's up to you, but you might find if you go all the way to the root of it that it's actually a relaxer that sometimes engages in procrastination. So this brings me into the next part of the question here. I don't know, there are sometimes stressful, difficult things that I want to avoid. Well, there's another area that I want to push back against. There are parts of you that, of course, don't want to do difficult things. But you also have to look at it from the perspective of what do they want. Because from this perspective in this model, everything is proactive. It's not reactive. It's not defensive against something. It's actually, so it's like as the lazy bear, I proactively seek relaxation and short-term pleasure, instant gratification, proactively. When things get in my way from that personality, I don't like it. So working hard is a goal and a way of being that gets in the way of being relaxed. So it's a motivational conflict. The parts of you, what's happening here is the parts of you that are very committed and dedicated to working hard and showing up and living a certain way are getting interference. So that's why you're saying these parts of me none of my other personalities like what he's doing. So what's happening is there's a strong amount of neurons devoted to the part of you that's engaging in what you're calling procrastination, but really it's just proactive. It's proactively seeking some sort of pleasure, and that which is ironically seeming to create more discomfort for you. So I just want to pause here, and I have a lot more to say about this, but I just want to pause here and allow Mercury to add anything that is on his mind so far.
Just that you can also respond to it as everything you've got inside you is there for some reason. And so you can look at what it might be trying to tell you. And so, for instance, there might be different things that set off this procrastinator. And in two different categories. One might be that there's something wrong in the world, like that you're procrastinating something because you know it's not the direction you're supposed to go. And that you're not facing something else you should be doing. Maybe there's like a real change in goal you need to make. Or there could be an issue of what some people would describe in like spoons of energy, and another thing might just be you may have some energy problem. Whether it's emotional or physical. Do you push yourself too hard to the point where you need to take care of yourself? Like observe in yourself, is there something wrong with me that I just don't have the energy to get through the day? And so then are you eating right, sleeping right, or do you have, like with me, my depression knocks all my energy in, and I just don't, like, I have an actual situation to deal with. So yeah, those were just my thoughts of what might this be a warning bell for you to pay attention to.
I like that. Yeah. So again, the problem that we get into is when we treat any of the subpersonalities within us as a defensive thing about getting what they don't want. You have to focus proactively. What do they want? Well, the worker wants to work. The worker wants to be productive. The businessman wants to make deals, wants to make money. The poet wants to be creative, wants to explore. Whatever these personalities in you are, they want things proactively. Yes, do they have fear? Of course. Do they have things that they would rather not engage in? Of course. But they also have this whole perspective of proactive engagement. And what I read in your post is you're all on the defensive side, but look at the proactive side of it. What are the payoffs? What are you getting out of what your behavior is? And if you look at it from that perspective, you'll see that there is a payoff. There's something that you're engaging in for some sort of stimulus that is in some sense either rewarding or seen as a benefit to that part of you. So even people with depression, and I think that this is something really important to understand, because I have a part of me that tends to feel depressed. There is a sense of wanting to feel depressed from that particular part. There's a sense of, I'm engaged proactively in this outcome. I have a funny story to illustrate my point. I was talking to a friend, and they were very depressed, and I was trying to cheer them up. And they said, they were starting to laugh. They were starting to come up. And they said, "Don't make me laugh, I'm depressed." The point is that we always have some sort of investment in whatever way of being that we're engaged with. And until we examine that investment, we're not fully self-aware of the situation as a whole. And it can be very helpful. You have to remember, it's not a value judgment. It's not about beating yourself up. It's not about saying, I'm wrong for feeling this way, or I shouldn't want to feel this way. No, it just is what it is. The part feels what it feels. It wants what it wants. The work is, can you find a deep place of connection within yourself to negotiate a unitive reconciliation of the parts of your psyche so that you can integrate and move forward. That's the shadow integration that Jung talked about. That's making what he calls making the unconscious conscious. That's repurposing the subpersonalities. You can put all these different words to it. But the point is that when we bring awareness to the way we're behaving and we highlight the feelings that different parts of us are having, we have the potential to create a new path forward. So the new path forward is integrating this personality who is struggling with feelings of having different desires, whether it be relaxation or being not too stoked about hard work. How can you integrate it so it's a conscious part of who you are rather than something that's continuing to sneak through the back door and rent space in your head? This is something that I think we struggle with as human beings a lot, is we think if we deny or resist a part of us, that it'll just go away, but it usually only makes it more powerful. And it's like feeding the monster. It's like it's giving it more reality, rather than not looking at it as a monster, but looking at it as a potential part of yourself to celebrate, a unique predisposition of who you are. That there's an opportunity here to see, oh, wow, this part of me really helps me relax after a hard, long day of work. I've found for me that what I've done is I've used reward for the lazy part of me as a motivator for the working hard parts of me. So I say, okay, if I work hard for this amount of time, Dr. Peterson talks about this, it's a negotiation. Then I can watch Netflix. Then I can relax. Then I can be how I want to be. Those negotiations are very important because we're not rejecting the parts of our psyche. We're consciously integrating them, making space for them, and then we become more efficient and more focused on what we're doing in our life, and we have less conflicts tearing us apart in our minds and creating suffering. Jung had this great idea that whatever face we turn to the psyche, if we turn to ourselves with judgment and scrutiny, it will show that face back at us. So if we look at ourselves and say, this procrastinator, what a bad boy he is. If you get, and Dr. Strachan tells me this often, give them the name and they'll play the game. Be very careful how you engage with the parts of yourself, what you tell them they are or are not, because it really limits the possibilities of their being. So reel it back from procrastinator, find a more proactive term, a relaxer, lazy bear, whatever you want to call it. I like lazy bear, lazy Bob, I thought was funny. Whatever ideas you have, and see, lazy river is another one I like, and see how that flips the perspective here, and negotiate your time. And it's okay to have boundaries with parts. There are some times in my life where I have to say, hey, no, I'm not going to engage in that behavior. I'm not going to go there. And that part is kind of kicking and screaming like a little kid, but I'm dragging them along with me. There are times for that. But the more we can integrate and make it a cohesive harmony, a move towards wholeness, the Jungian self, that bigger integration, that's the goal in my estimation. Let's see if I addressed all this here.
Actually, that brought up a synchronicity, so I'm going to share it. I've been reading all of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and just a couple hours ago, I read there's this moment where dark forces have unleashed, like, essentially the antithesis of God, this dark primordial force that has been locked out of the universe since creation. And this just great incomprehensible thing rises up, and as it encounters people, just a second, I read a couple issues today. It absorbs the demon Etrigan, and he just goes into this blackness, and it's the dark entity speaking. It says, "Little thing, ? Little thing, you are in me, and I have a need, great need. Before light, I was endless, without name or need of a name. Then light came. Witnessing its otherness, I suffered my first knowledge of self, and all contentment fled. Tell me, little thing, tell me, what am I? Your name," so this is Etrigan talking back, "your name is evil, absence of God's light, his shadow partner, locked in endless fight." So back to the darkness. Mm-hmm. The fight is to be endless then? Little thing, you have taught me fatalism. You have taught me inevitability. They are not the things I needed. And so he spits him out, and when the next person gets absorbed, so little thing, you are in me and I have a great need. In this strange place of light and order and names, I have been named evil. Yet naming is not enough. I must know my nature. I must know my purpose. Tell me, little thing, what is evil? He responds, evil? Evil is a quagmire of ignorance that would drag us back as we climb towards the immortal light. A vile, wretched thing to be scraped from the sandals like dromedary soil. And the darkness says, am I so low then? And is he you serve so high that there can be no possibility of respect between us? Little thing, you have taught me contempt. It is not the answer that was required. And he absorbs a much greater being. He absorbs Spectre, who's like, sort of like in the DC universe, the right hand of God, like almost like an extremely powerful force of good. So little thing, my hunger for understanding grows larger and my patience dwindles. Shall my question be answered, or shall I snuff out the light and be done with the anguish its presence causes me? Spectre says, no, I forbid you, by the voice that speaks in all things. The darkness says, it does not speak in me. In me there is only the hateful nagging, the insoluble query. Tell me, little thing, what is evil for? The Spectre says, evil exists only to be avenged, so that others may see what ruin comes from opposing the great force, and cleave more wholly to its will, fearing its retribution. The darkness says, And what of the tortured eons I endured, unable to broach the maddening brilliance and quiet the pain it woke in me? Do they not demand retribution? Little thing, you have taught me only vengeance. Be gone that I may savor it in solitude. And then he absorbs Swamp Thing. So everyone else is done. He's about to unmake heaven, actually.
Wow.
And he absorbs Swamp Thing and says, little thing, you came to me willingly and without wrath in this extraordinary place. You are extraordinary. What have you to offer me? Swamp Thing says, I have nothing. I came in resignation. Whatever you are, I cannot fight you, but I cannot stand and watch. Darkness says, then will you answer my question? Little thing, will you tell me the purpose of evil? Swamp Thing says, I cannot. I am not the one you seek. I have tried to make sense of that darkness, and I have failed. I have seen evil, its cruelty, the randomness with which it ravages innocent and guilty alike. I have not understood it. I asked the Parliament of the Trees, whose knowledge is older, greater than mine. They seem to insist that there was no evil. But I've seen evil, and their answer was incomprehensible to me. And yet they spoke of aphids eating leaves, bugs eating aphids, themselves finally devoured in the soil, feeding upon the foliage. They asked me where evil dwelled within this circle, and told me to look to the soil. The black soil is rich in foul decay, yet glorious life springs from it. But however dazzling the flourishes of life in the end, all decays to the same black humus. Perhaps evil is the humus formed by virtue's decay. And perhaps it is from the dark, sinister loam that virtue grows strongest. I do not know. I do not know what they meant. In the darkness as I see, little thing, I sense a great and final end approaching, and I would be alone. And he lets him go back out. And after that, and seeing itself as a part of the whole, the darkness reaches out a hand, and instead of striking heaven reaches out a hand back. And it all swirls into the yin-yang symbol in someone's eye.
And that's the wholeness. That's the self. That's the greater totality of who we are.
And the way, like that eternal darkness is where all the various demons we deal with sort of come from. They're smaller fragments of it. And it reoccurs in Alan Moore's work, which I find powerful because I've noticed it consistently in myself. The way we approach it defines it so often.
Yes. I think that's so important, Merc.
Like, approach a demon, or even approach a tough guy in the street. Like, he's a problem and you're about to fight him. Your hand in your pocket, or pull out a weapon as you approach someone. Tell them they're horrible and the enemy, that they shouldn't be there, and they're not going to treat you well. So Alan Moore, often a bunch of his stuff will come down to like a demon, like in Promethea as well, when she has to face this one great demon in that series. The demon responds something like, treat us like vile and evil with nothing but hate, and that is how we'll show up. Treat us humanely with respect. And like there's still the darkness to that side of life. Like there's still the suffering caused by parts of us. There's still the actual sins that need to be forgiven. But it's through forgiveness and understanding, and I do think it comes down to, in the end, it's not like the black side of the yin-yang was a mistake. This is all serving us in some way we don't understand. And to not be as contemptuous of the death and decay that is a part of the whole process. You can change your relationship to all those things.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's, especially when we're talking about working with the personality of the parts of who we are, and performing that alchemical transformation and unifying those parts, it's so essential that there is a sense of acceptance for the different urges and desires within us. The The denial of a particular urge or desire is not enlightenment. It's not self-discipline. You can suppress yourself all you want, and some people live their life that way, but that's not moving towards the wholeness of the soul. That's not moving towards the awakening that we're talking about. Carl Rogers, obviously great clinician from the 60s, in this book on becoming a person, says, the funny thing is, when I accept myself just the way I am, then I can change. That's the ironic paradox, right? That's what we don't get. That's what we struggle to contend with. We resist ourselves, and we think that resistance is going to somehow lead to the promised land. But actually, it's the ability to really take in that feeling of procrastination that you're describing. I believe it was Zach, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and take it in and test it against the other parts of who you are. Test it against your deeper soul, that sense of purpose and connection you have within yourself, that sense of life, that sense of consciousness that you can observe in those moments of awe and beauty that you experience every so often. If you test it against that, you'll see that it's not something to be sussed out or something to be violently destroyed within yourself. It's something to look at and see, how does this fit in with who I am in a way that feels harmonious? Because right now, what's happening is I'm suffering. And in my suffering, I am only making things worse by resisting. And if I have the capacity to loosen my grip a little bit and see, I can't tell you, it's just amazing. I used to struggle with this all the time. Especially in my first couple years of undergrad. It was like I wouldn't do my homework. I wouldn't show up to class. It was like I almost failed out of college in my first year. And then I ended up getting straight A's for the last 3 years. But the point is that what happened was it wasn't that I learned how to neglect the idea of being the relaxed, laid-back 20-year-old. It was that I learned how to integrate that part of myself to the extent that it had a place within all the other parts that also wanted a place. And so it was no longer primary. And then when I did relax, it felt better because I had already gotten all my work done. So it was like, oh my God, I can actually sit here and enjoy a cup of coffee, enjoy hanging out here with Mercury, because I just had a really great day. I had a very productive day, and I feel all the parts of me are feeling good, and so I can give this lazy part of me some time to just chill. There is that element of integration and enjoyment, the benefit, the long-term benefit we get when we do this work. One last thing on that. Go ahead, Merc, please.
I was going to say, okay. So the way Peterson talks about negotiating with yourself, and if you're not following your own rules, so I'm not talking about society's projection or what other people expect of you, but if you're not following your own rules, when you give into that lazy part of you, because I've talked to a lot of people who have it, and I have it myself, when that part's unacceptable, when it's the outsider you're still trying to get rid of, you will have a tendency to do things that you either find actually not rewarding. Like you'll start just indulging in a behavior that you don't even enjoy anymore, or you'll even go to vices that are outside of your rules. Yes. Like you'll drink when you're not supposed to be. Whereas when you have it more integrated and you've accepted that part of you and you're giving it the downtime, you have a tendency to do things that are actually more nourishing and like genuinely enjoyable. You'll be more likely to choose a movie that gives you a great experience than watching some garbage that you don't even particularly want to watch. Or you're more likely to do something good, go for a walk, do something, read a good book. And yeah, that comes with accepting that part of you and try to negotiate down to something where you can be okay with how you live as well. Because also some of us have disabilities of all various forms. It's how well can you do? And if you're doing your best, compare yourself to yourself previously, not to others.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. Zach is here. Hey, we've really enjoyed talking about your question. It's been a fun question, and thanks so much for tuning in. Yeah, you can drag the red dot back to the beginning now if you want to hear what we said, or you can just continue to watch us live and go back later. So, yeah, exactly, Mercury. I think that I actually have about what you just said. I have a piece that I wrote about that I'm going to pull up here right now. That this is something I wrote, I think, in 2017 when I was writing about my first real deep thinking about the subpersonalities. And I wrote my my undergrad psychology thesis with this integrated into it. So it was kind of a fun project. The cool thing is now, after a few more years of rigorous studying and training under my belt, I can go back to that paper and I can be like, wow, like I've come a long ways from the guy who wrote this paper, which is pretty fun to see, because I was not always able to articulate myself clearly in any way. Andrew Jokum, who used to be the primary owner of this channel, my first podcast with him back when I was doing the Soul Tree project, I was so nervous because I just started doing podcasts, and I had such a hard time voicing what I was trying to say in my mind. It was like my mind knew exactly what I wanted to say. It was clear. It felt deep. It felt well-rounded. And then when I listened to the recording later, it was like, that didn't sound anything. Like, that sounded like shit. I couldn't say anything. And I feel like that is the problem of learning to articulate yourself. That's why I started podcasting. Not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons. Because I wanted to force myself to be in a position that I had to move towards a better mastery of speech. And it's amazing what practice can do. I mean, I encourage people, if you're somebody who wants to practice learning to articulate yourself, talk to yourself in your car while you're driving. Take an idea and record it on your iPhone and see if you can make it make sense enough that you would publish it on YouTube or something like that. Teaching is another great way to improve your ability to articulate. It's like, find something you're really passionate about and find someone who wants to learn it and teach it to them. It's one of the best ways to learn how to speak clearly. And I have a long way to go myself. I have bigger goals than where I'm at now. That's for damn sure. But I do have some tips and stuff to help for people who are interested in that. So anyways, I'm going to pull this up. And if you have any comments on that, quick, Merc, while I'm doing this, then go for it.
Okay, my thought on that is, if someone is like at a further stage back where you were earlier, also keep in mind that even if it doesn't seem to go well at first, you would be surprised what you can possibly do in the long run. And it's no matter what it is. If you're interested in taking up an instrument, art, getting in shape, if you're someone who doesn't exercise at all, don't be discouraged if at first you just do it badly and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised what very, very, very small improvements begin to add up to over time. And most things tend to pick up an exponential curve eventually, where it's like you struggle for a long time at the beginning, feeling like it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Give things time.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull a segment out of this paper here to give you a little more idea, Zach, about the way that you could work with this personality that you're dealing with, the procrastinating. And I'll give you a little context here. The whole idea that this comes from, most people live lives that are reactive and on autopilot, meaning it's societally driven and not questioned on a deep level. So there's a Heideggerian element to that the nature of our being and our potential conceals itself in the everydayness of our routine living, and in our engagement with societal judgments and values. And so you have there's a way in which the average humanness that we experience gets covered over. The deeper potentiality of who we could be or what we could experience can get covered over by averageness. And it's not good or bad. This isn't a value judgment. It's just a phenomena that happens throughout history. We lose ourselves in the world. We lose ourselves in society. So and because we have these sub-personalities, we have the tendency to just take the path of least resistance. So whatever coping styles and dispositions are within us, and whatever world meets us on the external environmental outside, we have the tendency to meet that with the easiest path without really questioning, with a Socratic sensibility, thinking, is this really how I want to live my life? So that's a self-directed life. What I'm in favor of is what I called soul-directed living. It's a deep sense of connection, purpose, meaning, and making choices from a place of self-awareness rather than just letting life happen to you. So that needed to be said. In order to do that, what you have to do is engage the sub-personalities in a soulful way. Bring awareness to who you are. So here's the segment. The transition from self to soul. In order to enter the soulful dimension, one must take mindful actions that signify that commitment. The transition from self to soul is the sacred flip. Unwanted expressions of parts, emotions, and life issues, parts meaning subpersonalities, are let go of, and new expressions are claimed and energized from the soul. Meaning that the subpersonalities are now empowered. They have purpose. They have a job that is mindfully designated. When the soul does this, it alchemizes the parts, the subpersonality's current predicament, and empowers it with a deeper and wiser purpose. This is a quote, if we are able to live in that state of pure being, something must die. It's like when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. The caterpillar does not become a flying caterpillar. It morphs into a butterfly. So that's a Ram Dass quote that I liked. The progression of caterpillar to butterfly signifies the transformational rites of passage from self to soul. The subpersonalities that need to be worked with must be transformed into butterflies. This is the process of getting the deepest wisdom out of each subpersonality of the self. Meanwhile, the old expression patterns of those subpersonalities must be let go of to make room for new expressions. For example, a woman named Sarah had a subpersonality she referred to as the lazy river. She was troubled that this subpersonality would always drive all her energy during the weekends and binge watching Netflix. This did not feel aligned with her soul's deepest purpose. For her transition from self to soul, she redirected the lazy river's actions and reassigned them to mindful rest. The lazy river was directed to do activities such as lay in the grass, lay under the stars, take a mindful walk, take a bath, and many other calming activities. This recharged her and allowed her to enjoy her weekends fully. She mindfully used the power of she used this energy mindfully from the power of the soul and directed herself to change. So the effect is that she got the most brilliant expression out of that part of her. Eventually, after repeating this practice, the plasticity of the brain was utilized to create new habitual circuitry. She was no longer engaging in her self-proclaimed overindulgence in Netflix. She was doing mindful and soothing parasympathetic activities. So the point is, and again, even reading that now, I'm thinking I need to rewrite that. But the point is that there's so many potentialities for how something can show up in our lives, for how it can be manifested. And there's so many negotiations and balances that can be made in this process of self-awareness. And I used an example earlier. If the worker in me tells the lazy part, listen, give me give me 10 hours today, and I'll give you tomorrow morning, or I'll give you Saturday, or whatever it would be. These are the mindful negotiations that we need to make in order to have the most efficient psychological experience, where we are operating at a level where we're not wasting energy resisting ourselves. We waste so much energy resisting our own urges. It's literally destroys our sense of connection to our own lives, and we get into these states of the negative analysis of who we are. Sometimes it's just as simple as letting go of the resistance and focusing on the proactive, positive solution and moving forward. And in order to do that, we have to get flat and get honest about where we're actually at and what we actually want. If you spend your whole life denying something that you feel, but yet you still continue to feel it under the surface and suppress it, that is extremely taxing. And all that energy that you're wasting in denial and in that effort could be used to just simply deal with it. So I think that wraps up that part for me, Merc. Did you have anything else?
No, I think we said it.
Okay. And thank you all. I'm seeing your comments here, and we appreciate your engagement. We're going to read an email from an anonymous fellow from Germany that was very kind in response to Merc's recent live stream. So I'm going to pull that up. The email subject is "Thanks for your content." Hello, Mercury. I'd just like to let you know that I love following your content and your lunatic live streams. They might seem boring on the surface, but they provide so much meaning to the people who are ready to be authentic, as you said. What you get, quote, what you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with whoever shows up is a space where it's okay to just be authentically human. I noticed, unquote, I noticed that this is exactly what turns away the trolls and attracts this community of great people who are ready for deep thoughts and deep connection. What fascinates me about you is that although you experience those extreme emotional states, you seem to be able to return to a place where you get the benefit of those experiences, which is a deep insight into human nature. Thank you for sharing this. You might seem pathetic to most of the world, but you are actually very strong because you have accepted yourself. The haters cannot get in there. You simply brush them off by being authentic and honestly interested in them. I respect you for this. I'm happy to see that you're settled in at the moment and wish you peace. Hello, Ryan. Thank you for all your hard work and the content you are putting up. Greetings from Germany. Beautiful email.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time to write that in. That meant a lot to me. Like I said in the other stream, I've been really depressed lately, and I just did the past couple streams without thinking or evaluating really what benefit there was for anyone. But after the last stream I did also, I realized I was just very impressed by the entire community here. I had really nothing planned, and I had just watched The Joker, so I didn't think of it at the time, but I just went on live onto YouTube with nothing prepared in a depressed state. Very open as well. I wasn't all shielded, and I even titled it based on the joke in the movie. But I even set myself up to attract trolls, with the title of it being "What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with whoever shows up tonight?" I had no idea what the punchline to that was. I didn't know what was going to happen at the stream, and it's just amazing how positive a space I walked into when I did that. Looking back on it, I'm surprised how open and vulnerable I've been with the live streams, looking back on it, and how well received I've been. The community that's been interacting is incredibly positive.
Yeah, well, I think we all see a lot in you, man. And I think sometimes we see a lot more in you than you might have seen in yourself. And it's amazing that some dude who lives in the middle of fucking nowhere off the grid in Canada, barely barely interacts with people has this wellspring of wisdom and poetic capacity, and people see that. The same thing that makes you whatever you call mentally ill, which is a word I don't use or think is the word that I would use personally. You have your right to use it if you want. The same thing that makes you whatever you are in your suffering is also part of the same thing that makes you brilliant. And I think that's something to be appreciated, brother. That's something to be celebrated. That's something to look at as a gift, and to look at as an opportunity to focus on the positive about who you are. And I really appreciate all that stuff about you, man.
Thanks. And yeah, thanks to everyone who's supported the channel since we took it over. Looking back on that as well, both of us took a pretty big risk stepping into someone else's shoes.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Yeah. Wow. Well, boy meets work. Let's see. I'm sorry we're not really reading all your comments here.
Yeah, is there anything that jumps out? Is there anything you want to respond to quickly?
It looks like it's all good stuff, and to be honest with you, I'm just kind of burnt out.
Cool.
So I haven't talked to you in so long. Let's just catch up for a minute, and because it's been, what has it been, a couple weeks since we've had a chance to really connect.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
Pretty much the same. Yeah, there's not much news. I'm in hibernation.
You're in depressed winter mode, right?
Yeah, I'm just sort of frozen. Or to me, it's the middle of the night when nothing changes.
Yeah.
But how about you? Because you've been fucking busy.
Dude, I'm just tired. I have been busy. I had a grind the last month or so. I had a great day today. I got a bunch of work done this morning, and then Victoria and I went to the Nature and Science Museum, and I learned a ton. Did you know the Earth is 4 fucking billion years old? Holy shit.
Yes, I was aware it was roughly that.
I mean, when you really think about it, and it was amazing, this museum in Denver, it's like top of the line technology and displays and scientific information. It's everything you would want out of an experience at a museum. It's really cool. But we went through this whole series of displays. It was like a timeline of the universe, or excuse me, the timeline of the planet Earth. The universe would be a whole nother display. And it was like from one display box to the next, it was like 4 billion years, 3 billion years, 2.5 billion years, 1 billion years, 600 million years. And you could just see really gradually the process of evolution starting to take shape. And when life exploded, that one moment where we came to that display where it was like, life is in the ocean. I think it was something crazy like, was it 600 million years? And animals started, they had like these weird cone shapes with these tentacles. They didn't even look like an animal, but it was just like this creature that floated around. And it was just, I just got such a sense of appreciation for the incredible process that went into. I told Victoria, I was like, and this all led to us loving each other. It was just like, it's just ridiculous. It's just absurd. It's like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, what? And then you see the chimps. It's like, oh, no, not the chimp, not even the chimps. You see the first monkeys, the early monkeys, and you're like, holy shit. Like, that is us. That's the beginning of us. And I just loved it. I was so happy. I was so, and I also had this sense of existential dizziness. I was like, whoa. You know, it really puts life in perspective. And we create these cultural values and meanings, and they're all fucking necessary. We need meanings. We need structures to navigate reality. But when you realize why Nietzsche looked into the void and was like, oh shit, if God's dead, then this is scary. You get it. You get why he said that. You get why he felt that way, because it's like beyond our structures that we've built that buttress us against chaos, the universe is fucking big. And I'm not a nihilist by any stretch. You know, I'm deeply, I even feel deeply connected to my sense of soul and a power greater than myself that to me is the universe and its creative capacity. To me, there's some wisdom to it all, but it's still it can be nauseating to stare it in the face.
And it's really strange to look at that time scale and then to look at how short, because like even within that time scale, when humans arise, really isn't very long ago.
Yeah.
But then what we are now, because the humans we are now is practically a new species. We're at this strange point, like with information doubling, increasing exponentially, and like what's going on now, talking at this distance over the internet, the amount of control we have over our environment, the amount of things we can do all over the planet, that is so brand new.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, yeah, because it showed us in there, like, this is the history of the Earth. This, you know, let's say this long meter stick or something, and then this little smidge of space, humans, you know, and then there was like a little, like half a foot, dinosaurs, and it just puts the whole process into some really interesting perspective. And I love it though. To me, it's like a strange meditation to look at history and how small we are in that way. And that's time. I mean, it makes you feel small in time, but then if you go to the space part of the museum, then you feel small in space. So it's like either way you cut it, it feels pretty small. But the other thing I realized is that, yes, we feel small when we look at this, but everybody feels like they're the center of the universe.
Also, when you look at like the Earth from space and you see how tiny the atmosphere really is, like that our entire sky that seems so vast to us, with the clouds so big overhead, is just this little layer of gases built up on the edge of the Earth. Like how small and fragile that is, yet it feels so huge and stable.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing, man. But the most profound thing, and this is a Rumi quote that I like, you are the whole ocean in a drop of water. So even though we look at the universe and we look at time and we look at all this and we think, wow, look at the logistical insignificance of my body and my mind. But then when you go inward, it's like you can meditate, you can look within yourself, you can reflect on your life, and it's almost just as mind-boggling and infinite. I mean, if you just like drill down into the cellular level, the molecular level, it's like that's a whole universe. It's like you can go into the micro or you can go up into the macro, and it's to me there's this concept in Buddhism called Indra's net, and the idea is that the net is full of diamonds, basically, or gems, and at each cross point in the net is the center. And the point is that there are multiple points of significance, or we could take meaning that in this moment, me experiencing myself as consciousness is significant. It is important. It is a center. It's a center, and it's also this idea of the world tree or the axis mundi or the anima mundi, the soul of the world. You know, like what was the tree Yggdrasil that Odin hung from 9 days of the. You find this all over the place. That the idea is that there are points of significance that we can access within ourselves and within our environment that really that they gather something about the whole universe within them. They gather like wisdom or essence or beauty, or there's something about it that gathers itself in and allows us to experience the whole ocean in one drop. And I think that that's the beauty of being human, is we have the capacity to be limited in a sense that we also have the capacity to experience awe and expansion and this feeling of, oh my God, it just goes on within and without. It's really neat.
Yeah, I think you said that brilliantly. I don't even need to add
Uh-oh. Nothing. That's so funny. That makes me blush because I'm thinking like, damn, my mouth's like a loose cannon tonight. I just keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking.
Well, good. It's been a while since we put up much content.
I know.
I'm not that talkative.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, let's just run through the comments and give some shout outs real quick. I want to at least pay my respects to all the brothers and sisters out there. Uh-oh, I gotta find the actual video here. Excuse me, folks. We are in process of finding your comments. Here we go. Daniel is here. Corliss. Michael. So glad you're all here. Boy Meets Ward. It's Corelius, I think. Grizz! It looks like... Did we lose somebody? Boy Meets... Grizz says, it looks like Ryan is talking. Did anyone else just go deaf? Oh, okay. Tiny speaker on the tab. I hope I didn't do anything on my end. Daniel, James, Zach, thanks for being here. Amanda, thank you for being here, Amanda. Shane. Hope I don't miss anyone. Adela, darling. Adela is always so sweet. Michael says, read the first paragraph of Emerson's Circles. Also Einstein's relativity. I'm gonna pop the Discord link into the chat for everybody. I want to brag about our Discord server for a moment, and here's why. Because we have a community of really brilliant people. I mean, if you go through and read some of the posts, it's really nice, and it's really nice to see the deep thinking and the level of education, and not just education from this kind of disconnected standpoint, but just people who have spent time really feeling and thinking and processing what there is important to them in lives. But not only that, I mean, because even if education isn't your thing, just the authenticity, the way of being a community that we have in the Discord, I've just really appreciated it. So if you want to join, the link is in the chat, and I always enjoy popping in there as much as I can. So that's my little plug for joining. It's obviously free. It's just Discord, so we just talk to each other. It's kind of a nice thing for the community. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Merc?
No.
All right, man.
Just same thing. Hi to everyone who showed up, and same appreciation to the community. But yeah, I feel like we covered that earlier when we responded to the email.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I have to find a way to go into the stream here and end the stream because it doesn't end on its own when I exit it on OBS. What are you up to for the rest of the week, Merc?
No, nothing particular planned.
Cool.
Just downtime, winter hibernation.
I can't believe I don't know how to end this live stream. Huh. Grizz would know. He's probably shaking his head. Alright, where are we gonna... Grizz, save me. Save me from myself. What do I do? I had it in the creator tab. So let's see if I can fix this. I gotta be able to fix this. Go to... Okay, I think I can do this. Oh, there it is. Live control room. There it is, everybody. Any last words? I can't believe we're on for an hour. I said 20 minutes. That was what I said. I said, Merc, I will do this. I want to do this. I invited him. It was my idea. And I said, but god damn it, I'm not going over 20 minutes because I'm tired. And lo and behold, I mean, this. How often have I done this?
Yeah, you do that more often than not.
That's why. Okay, here's a good exercise on subpersonalities. The lazy bear me, who is tired, is saying, don't do it! If you start doing it, you'll never stop. You'll get addicted to it. You'll want to keep going and going. You'll keep working. You'll keep going. He does that to me all the time. Don't make a new video. Don't write that paper. Don't... Because he knows if I get started, I get a lot of momentum, and I keep going. It's like... Fucking hey. But I'm glad we did it. I have no regrets. It's awesome. All right, everybody. We love you, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.